What's up, fam? In this video we're going to talk about police raiding the wrong house and how some of these cops will never be brought to justice for their wrongs. When a judge signs a warrant, every precaution should be taken to ensure that the Constitution is not violated and that the proper due diligence has been taken to ensure that lives are preserved. Police are sometimes protected by a principle known as qualified immunity, which protects them from civil suits unless the plaintiff shows that the official violated clearly established statutory and constitutional rights which a reasonable person would have known. Check out the merchandise available for purchase. To purchase merchandise, click on the links available in the video description. Thanks. These tees can be purchased on black, white, or gray backgrounds. Please smash the bell icon to be notified of new content. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching. It says the officers who raided the wrong house and arrested an innocent elderly man may have immunity. Now it's up to the Court of Appeals to decide. Henry County, Georgia, Henry Norris was watching the news when the explosion went off inside his home. Something went off like a bomb in my house, the now 81-year-old remembered from the February 8, 2018 raid on his home he has owned for half a century. It was the Henry County Sheriff Office Special Response Team smashing down his door with a battering ram. The explosion Norris heard was a flash bang grenade that dynamic entry teams used to disorient their targets. But Norris wasn't the target of the raid. Deputies had raided the wrong home and the wrong house. The no-knock search warrant signed by Henry County Magistrate was for a house next door. The warrant obtained by Reveal investigative team shows a detailed description of the targeted address, including information about the suspected drug dealer living next to Norris's house. The warrant described an off-white house with a black roof. Norris' house is yellow with a gray roof. The house even had separate driveways, addresses, and mailboxes. Yet the heavily armed, camouflage-clad Henry County SRT deputies walked right past the targeted house without clearing it and charged through the tree line straight to Norris' back door. Three strikes with the battering ram, the door gave way. Sheriff office search warrant, the deputy yelled before tossing a flash bang grenade. Norris said the deputies kicked down 4 doors before they found him standing in his hallway, illuminated by the tactical flashlights attached the SWAT team's M4 rifles. Got to the hallway, they was all over me, Norris said. Grabbed my arm, twisted behind my back and handcuffed me. The Reveal obtained 8 complete helmet camera videos that were provided to Norris as part of his lawsuit against deputies. Once they realized they had the wrong man, the deputies turned off their cameras one by one, but some remained in Norris' house after the mistake had been discovered. Norris said the deputies told him they would leave and he would be released only if he agreed to sign a piece of paper they put in front of the handcuffed 79-year-old. So I signed my name on there, Norris said. I didn't get a chance to read it. Case dismissed, qualified immunity. Attorney Darrell Scott filed a lawsuit on behalf of Norris against the deputies who had laid siege to his home without a warrant. A pizza delivery man could have delivered a pizza to the correct address, Scott said, describing the lack of due diligence the deputies showed. The primary defendant named in the lawsuit was the tactical commander, but the federal judge dismissed the case against him and other deputies ruling all law enforcement officers are protected by qualified immunity, except for black ones. The judge ordered granting the officers qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is a court-invented doctrine that allows the law enforcement officers and other government actors to avoid liability when they violate a citizen's constitutional rights, Scott explained. The doctrine was carved out to protect officers from individual liability when they make mistakes attempting to enforce the law. As a screening mechanism for frivolous lawsuits and what is morphed into almost absolute immunity for law enforcement officers, Scott said. The U.S. Supreme Court has determined that officers can be held liable only when they violate rights that are clearly established, Scott said. In practice, what that means is civil rights plaintiff has to find a case with functionality and equivalent set of facts that has already been decided. Wow. Norris and Scott has filed an appeal with the 11th Circuit Court, U.S. Court of Appeals. Attorney Darrell Scott has a good track record in fighting qualified immunity dismissals. After 11 Alive exposed the wrong arrest of Griffin, coupled by Clayton County Police, and a federal judge tossed their lawsuit against a detective who arrested them on qualified immunity. The 11th Circuit reversed that decision. The Court of Appeals ruled that the police could not hide behind qualified immunity in the Clayton County case. I think that qualified immunity should be amended or abolished and make these cops partially responsible for the restitution for their mistakes, which led to a settlement brokered by Scott. Enjoyed the cities and counties enjoy sovereign immunity that creates an even higher hurdle for plaintiffs than qualified immunity. That's why citizens seeking compensation for damages from the actions of government often sue individual officers. Through the vast majority of cases, cities and counties indemnify their employees for official acts. In other words, any payments will come from the government agency or its insurance company, not the officer's own money. The SWAT team got lost. Missed the deputy in the lead car explained less than a block from the targeted house. The SRT deputies in the trailing vans could be heard on camera straining to hold themselves up as the convoy came to a screeching halt. Different tactical officers asked why they could just go around stopped vehicles. They waited for the lead car to make a U-turn, then followed it to the address on the warrant. The tactical officer behind the wheel of the lead vehicle was following verbal directions from the automated voice on the phone's GPS app, according to the video. The deputies jumped out just short of the targeted house, waiting momentarily for the first two flashbang grenades to begin their assault. The confusion was evident from the first few seconds as the tactical officers openly questioned which house they should be raiding. "Where's the house?" the deputy is heard on camera asking with no response. Where we at? He asks again without an answer. Another deputy asks, "Where's the fucking house?" as the unit continues past the actual target on their way to Henry House through the tree line next door. One deputy on the scene watching a column of SRT officers moved quickly toward the Norris house and asked his buddy, "This house?" referring to the actual target. The second deputy is seen swinging his head back and forth between the two houses several times. It was already too late when the deputy swings his head back toward the Norris house for the last time. His helmet-mounted camera flashed, and the bang from the grenade, and the entry team had tossed inside. Why is it that these no-knock warrants are it seems like only black people are affected by this?
A suspect in an attempted murder case, and the search for him led to a deadly raid by Baltimore County Police, during which Officer Jason Schneider was shot and killed, though the man they were looking for was not inside the house. A jury heard evidence against 17-year-old Rashid Stanford and today found him not guilty. 11 News I-Team reporter Barry Sims is in Towson with details. And Barry, I would guess this officer's death cast a long shadow over Stanford's case.
That's right, and according to Stanford's father, that is exactly what happened. He says that prosecutors were trying to make a case against his son and make him pay for a crime that he didn't commit, and also the loss of a police officer.
The state's attorney looked and pointed at my son and said, "You're the reason." No, he's not the reason. He's not the reason Officer Schneider was killed.
Tavon Stanford thinks the case against his son focused on finding blame. 17-year-old Rashid Stanford was on trial for the attempted murder of a man who was shot last August outside the Brick House Bar on Winters Lane in Catonsville. A Baltimore County jury deliberated about an hour and a half before returning a not guilty verdict.
I'm happy that they were able to see the evidence against my client and that my client never shot someone.
The victim in this case stood on the stand and said out of his own mouth, out of his own free will, under oath, no, it was not Rashid Stanford who shot me.
But looming over this case is what happened following a week-long search for Rashid, who was 16 at the time. Using a no-knock warrant, Baltimore County Police raided a house on Roberts Avenue. 36-year-old Officer Jason Schneider was killed along with one of Rashid's relatives, Tavon Smith. Rashid was not there.
Yes, I apologize. I'm sorry. My heart goes out to that officer.
I think there was an added police presence due to the fact that an officer died. And I think they put their best people on the investigation and turned over every stone in order to try to convict my client.
Prosecutors accept the jury's verdict and say this was an extremely difficult case.
It was absolutely, unquestionably, a very difficult case. It was investigated great by the Baltimore County Police Department. They put a lot of effort into this. They did a wonderful job. But when you're dealing with situations with either uncooperative witnesses or inconsistent pieces, that's something that we have to deal with.
They admit Officer Schneider's death overshadowed the trial.
Oh, unquestionably. Yeah, I mean, it's an officer losing his life and trying to protect our citizens. It was related directly to this case, and so it's something that's not going to be ignored.
Police arrested Taquan Barney following that raid. He was arrested on weapons charges. The 18-year-old's trial is now set for July 8th. Reporting live from Towson, Barry Sims, WBAL-TV 11 News.
Well, new developments tonight in the story that we brought you is breaking news just last night at 11 o'clock. Prince George's County Police saying today that the man who shot 2 of their officers last night will not be facing any criminal charges at all. It's because police should never have been at his home to begin with. Annalisa Gale live now in Forestville with the details tonight. Annalisa?
Jonathan, right now the focus for Prince George's County Police Department is on vetting all warrants. They've now ordered a moratorium that will last between 24 and 48 hours. Meanwhile, people living here at this apartment building are still trying to figure out how this could happen.
They went in like they knew where they were going.
Victor Harrison watched as several officers approached his neighbor's apartment on Loring Drive on Wednesday night around 10 p.m. Moments later, his neighbor fired a shot, injuring 2 officers.
The investigation led us to the wrong address.
Chief Hank Stawinski says that man will not face charges for opening fire on those officers who went into the apartment with a search warrant after knocking.
He was innocent. I mean, he didn't have anything to do with what they were trying to do.
The officers' goal was to find information about a drug dealer, but as it turns out, they had inaccurate info from a confidential informant.
I believe he fired that weapon because he felt he was defending himself and his daughter.
The Prince George's County Police Department is now working on a new set of standardized practices to ensure that the mix-up will never happen again.
Like, everybody is just like careless at this point, because if you're serving a search warrant, you should know exactly where to go.
And we're told that that man was devastated after he shot the officers. At this point, one of those officers has been released from the hospital. The other had to have surgery, but they're expected to be okay. Live from Forestville, Annalisa Gale, ABC 7 News.
Chicago police changing how they conduct search warrants after an 18-month CBS 2 investigation exposed officers repeatedly raiding innocent families' homes.
Yeah, the mom of these children says it's not nearly enough. CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini showed her newly uncovered body camera footage of her bad raid.
It's 8:30 at night.
I see lights.
You're inside a police car on Chicago's South Side.
We're sneaky.
A team of officers zeroes in on a house. 14 heavily armed cops.
Swing up.
On the hunt for a heroin dealer with the street name Peanut.
Door's locked.
Did anybody knock?
No.
They just came in?
Search warrant, Chicago police! Door's open. Going in. Watch the right.
But they are breaking into the wrong home. And all they find are innocent children.
They had guns to our faces.
14-year-old Savannah in the purple shirt hits the ground. You are looking at the back end of a high-powered rifle. Lying next to her, still in his school uniform, is her 7-year-old brother, JJ. He was stunned at the sight of an assault rifle.
And they had their finger on a trigger.
In another room, their 11-year-old sister, Talia, is face down, surrounded by more weapons. Their mother, Crystal Archie, watches for the first time what happened to her children. She was on her way home from work when the raid happened back in April of 2019.
Relax.
Please do not shoot me.
You're fine.
You know who's on the floor right there? Can you tell who's on the floor?
My daughter is on the floor. I can hear her. I can hear her yelling. I can hear her yelling. And you just see the guns at the back of her head.
Her oldest child, Savannah, was babysitting.
Come on, get up.
They're handling heavy artillery. It would have taken one slip of your finger, and my children would not be here.
We don't want to see that happen. We don't want to erode.
These police are continually violating the rights of citizens. How long are we going to continue to stand for this?
The trust with the community.
Now, for the first time, Chicago police are talking about the disturbing trend the CBS 2 investigators exposed, which includes more than 23 children who say police pointed guns at them during wrong raids.
Where did they point the gun at you?
I wanted to like right here, but like straight at it.
Where did they point the rifle?
It was like around.
They pointed a gun at me.
When you saw some of the stories, what did you feel for some of these kids?
Based on the way that the footage was, you felt bad for them.
Chicago Police Lieutenant Matthew Klein and Risk Manager Michelle Morris.
Let's be clear, no child should have a gun pointed in his face.
They say the department is now adding training for officers to deal with children and creating a new search warrant policy aimed at protecting kids from trauma during raids.
How are you going to deal with children?
We're making sure that if we know children to be present, that in our operational planning, that it's discussed that there's going to be children in here.
What good is the plan if the officer, the affiant who's getting the warrant, hasn't independently verified, double-checked and triple-checked the informant's information to make sure you're actually going into the right apartment or the right home?
When they fail to do their due diligence and they make mistakes, the judge, the prosecutors, and all the cops should be held accountable.
Are there some that are not being done to the standards that we have? Absolutely, and that's being addressed.
Lieutenant Klein says there will be more oversight of the search warrant approval process, including a requirement mandating all officers run the proper public record checks through their information center at police headquarters to make sure they are raiding the right addresses.
Things fell through the cracks and they didn't realize that that was the proper way to obtain this information.
Repeated failures to get addresses right, leaving behind a trail of trauma.
This is the saddest moment.
And still, the city is refusing to track these wrong raids, covering up just how big the problem really is.
If you notice that the victims of these no-knock search warrants or these wrong houses being raided have been black and brown people. That's not an accident. This is white supremacy working as usual.
The little bit of data the CBS 2 investigators forced the city to release shows since 2016, police executed 6,800 search warrants. In nearly 3,000 cases, not a single arrest was made. We can't tell you how many of those 3,000 were wrong raids because tonight, even with the new policy in place, they admit they still have no method to track these kinds of wrong raids.
Are you creating any kind of a database for that, for those types of raids?
It has not currently been contemplated, but I mean, it might be in the future.
And
now I remind you, these are cops going into people's houses, and most of the time the wrong houses with guns drawn, putting lives at risk, and there's no track.
While they still won't track all the wrong raids, there are changes requiring body cameras are rolling from start to finish at every single new raid.
It must be on the entire time.
At what point in the raid are they supposed to turn them off?
When they leave.
Which brings us back to the Archie raid, where we found the raid team cut their body cameras off after only 3 minutes. In fact, police stopped recording right after the cameras captured something happening to the children that's not only outrageous, it might even be illegal.
Hey, just tell us, do you know where the stuff's at? Because if you can tell us that, then we're out of here.
And with no parent present,
Over here. Have a seat. Hold your hands like your sister. No, like this. Hold your hands like this. All three of you.
continue questioning.
Any drugs? You don't.
Now I hope this clown lost his job.
Any drugs that he sells?
Remember, this is the wrong house, and they never even heard of the guy named in the warrant.
So we stopped selling out of here? We stopped keeping it here? Who? Whoever keeps it here? We never had it.
The children say the interrogation continued, followed by a search of the home. But there's no body camera video of that because the sergeant in charge gave this order.
If everybody's secure, we can kill cameras.
The kids say when the police left, they told them they would return.
And there was a real fear from the children that they might come back.
Now this is a form of domestic terrorism by white supremacists.
Absolutely. I've literally walked into the apartment and I just cried. And there's no way to feel about going home. And that's my life now.
3 weeks after that raid, police raided the family's home again. We can't show you what happened that time because we are told none of those officers used body cameras.
These cops should not be allowed to turn their body cameras off.
It's been 10 months since
None
those
of them had
raids, and
body
no one from
cameras on
Internal
this
Affairs
time.
or the
This is
Civilian
domestic terrorism.
Office of Police Accountability, the agency that investigates police misconduct, has reached out to interview Crystal Archie or her kids. The Archies filed a federal lawsuit against CPD about 6 months ago.
So, Dave, this federal lawsuit, it's filed at least 6 months ago. Shouldn't that trigger a COPA investigation?
Historically, that is supposed to trigger a COPA investigation. They aren't commenting, but if they haven't already started an investigation, I'm sure after they just saw what happened here, there's one underway right now.
Yeah, 18 months, CPD has not talked to you. They finally did tonight and completely overhauled their procedures. Good work, Dave.
More work to be done, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.